Hey, Inspired Moneymaker. Today's guest grew up on a farm in India, studied economics, and took a turn toward tech, becoming a Silicon Valley coder, thought leader, and investor. Episode 214 features Sarbjeet Johal, economist, coder, and cloud influencer.
Learn coding. You may not want to pursue a career in coding, but it helps you think differently. It develops your logical muscle, like if, then, else kind of things in coding, right? And there are loops, like you do things repeatedly, and then how you develop systems, the interfaces. These constructs are valid in social life, in economics, in politics, everywhere.
I'm Andy Wong, host of the Inspired Money podcast and financial advisor at Runnymede Capital Management. Our guest today is Sarbjeet Johal, a thought leader in cloud and digital transformation. He's worked at Visa, Commerce One, PeopleSoft, EMC, VMware, Rackspace, and Oracle. He's worked with more than 50 Fortune 1000 companies in the last 20 years. He also advises young, fast-growing companies and is well-connected in the Silicon Valley startup and VC communities. We're going to cover a lot of territory. In this episode, you'll learn how growing up on a farm in India formed Sarbjeet's business mindset, the marketing strategy behind McDonald's Big Mac, and the power of cloud computing. Make sure you tune in to the end to learn more about Snowflake, one of the biggest IPOs of 2020. Now let's get inspired with Sarbjeet Johal. Sarbjeet, welcome to Inspired Money. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm glad to be here. Finally reconnected.
Let's jump right in. What's your earliest childhood memory of money?
Oh, that's an interesting question. My first childhood memory of money is like when my mom used to send me to local shop. I'm from a small village and born and raised there in India. And my mom used to send me to get some groceries from the local shop. And I'll take some money and then buy stuff. That's my memory. And I will try to buy candies with the remaining money, or sometimes they used to give us free candy if we buy a certain amount of groceries and stuff like that. That's my memory. Yes. Yep.
You're in Silicon Valley now. I imagine quite a bit different from a small village in India. What was it like growing up in the village? And I think that was Punjab?
Yeah, Punjab, yes. Even central part of the Punjab. It was different, of course, right? Different time. There was no internet back then. Even here, there was no internet, right? But being in a village versus being in a city, within that setting, within Punjab or within India, it is different. Different lifestyle. Life is very slow in village. Everybody knows everybody. When you're going through the streets, like people know who you are, right? And you say hello, hi to almost everybody in village. Let's say, it was different. It was very close-knit community, and it was hard to mess up and not get caught as a kid.
Kept you accountable because everybody knows everything.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
What was happening in Punjab at that time? I'm asking that question because I'm curious how that shaped your business mindset.
Oh yeah. I belong to a farming family, so that's the one thing which shapes my thinking. Farmers, I believe, they're very patient kind of people. They will put the seed in the ground and wait for 6 months for the fruit to come. And in the meantime, there can be floods or other natural calamities and all other kind of hardships like they have to go through to see that fruit. So they're very patient people, and generous in one way, but not generous in another. Like there are a lot of sayings that we used to have. Like a farmer will they can give you what we call gourd in Punjabi. It's like a jagger, like small, like thing, right? Made of from like 3 sugar canes, right? But they will not let you get 1 sugar cane from the field because it's very close to them. They can see visually, like, okay, my God, like somebody's like stealing from my field. But on the other end, they will give you something which is made from 4 or 5 of those free of cost. So it's like very generous on one side, and not on other kind of people, and yeah, close to animals, nature. We had horses and cows and buffaloes. Mostly in India, there are buffaloes and less cows for milk purposes. Yeah, it was it was beautiful. Yeah.
In Punjab, there were many people who were displaced due to some violence and independence. How does that shape a people?
Yeah, actually, I'm an economics major, so gradually, our family is pretty diverse. Actually, I belong to a Sikh family, which is majority in Punjab. Sikhs are majority in Punjab, but they are between 1 and 2% of the whole India's population. It's a very tiny part of the population, minority in India. But we were very secular in ways. My mother, especially, my father was less religious. My mother was a little more religious, but still, there's some Hindu rituals, in the village. People do that, and then, of course, belonging to Sikh family, like you do that, Sikh rituals and stuff like that. But we were not all never told to be very, like fanatic about the religion. Oh, we are the best, or this and that. But sadly, some part of the population on all kind of ends, like both ends, you can say, or right, mainly both ends, they can get radicalized by some powers. And being an economics student, and gradually came up with the sort of grips of that reality. Most of the problems in the world, I always say that, are economic problems. They take different shapes. Sometimes we say, okay, it's ethnic violence, it's a racial violence, it's a racial bias, it's economic. Mostly it is economic biases, classes, if you will. Yeah, I think when people's economics is threatened, these days it's happening a lot more. The farmers are protesting in Delhi, and now their livelihood is being challenged, and there's like a war will die for it, So they don't want to give up their livelihood, the land they think will be taken away from them and stuff like that. But back then it was actually another pattern I see is the more economically disadvantages you are, more religious you are, more you're closer to the religion. You can be easily manipulated by the religious fundamentalists, and I believe that what people were looking for was different, but it was given different color, and then some people hijacked the movement. The main problem was the states wanted more rights, right? In the federal system, states have rights, and the center, which is the federal system, they have rights, right? They have like laws and all that, and the states have their own. Like here, like in the US, we have that, right? So similar structure is in place in India. And states over there could not sell in the international market their crops and stuff like that. And they had to rely on the federal laws and stuff like that, which treated every state equally, but other states were not agriculture savvy. Punjab was. So all kind of things, right? A couple of states were like demanding those kind of more rights, right? And that gradually turned into kind of religious it got some religious sort of color to it. So that the violence started happening there, and they wanted to crush the movement, and it was crazy. When I was in my teen years, it was bad. Yep. The main place for Sikhs is Amritsar, like the Golden Temple. Like you must have heard about it. Golden Temple is a very beautiful place to visit, and it was attacked by Indian forces. So central government, you can say. The government attacking their own people was kind of not seen good. I mean, and you can't praise that at any level. But then they were trying. They said they were trying to get rid of some extremists from that place, and people were very close to. A lot of people were very close to. They're close to their religion again for the same reason as I told you earlier. They're not highly educated. I shouldn't say that. I will piss off some people. Like you can be educated and religious. As long as you really understand what a religion is. But for most people, it's a crutch. It's their only thing they can hang on to, and then that becomes your weakness. Rather than being your strength, it becomes your weakness, and that's what happened. Yeah, I actually usually don't talk about this kind of stuff, and because I'm not very religious myself, and I talk in terms of economics and the economics of the people in that part of the world, in India, for the masses is not that great, to be honest with you. It's a developing country, and a lot of people still struggle there.
Growing up in a farming family and following this path of studying economics, was there ever a vision of you returning home, or was it always trying to get out to somewhere else?
Yeah, actually, in the beginning, I didn't have the plan. I was very passionate about my studies, and coming from my parents are not educated. My father dropped out of elementary school, fourth grade. He didn't even finish the fourth grade. My mom didn't even finish the second grade of education. So there were some problems in the family settings, in like normal problems. Sometimes we have the domestic violence. We had little incidents like that, and I found that education being my way out. If I'm focusing on education, I was away from that thing. So even here, my wife was in education here for 27 years now. Some kids, when they come to school, that's their peaceful time. So they get good meal and all that kind of stuff. It was not that dire for me, to be honest with you, but it was my way to get out of the situation, to help my mom to, so she doesn't suffer from that, and also for some reason early on, like I had this urge to help people around me, because the way my mom, I think, preached it to me, like we have to help everybody, kind of thing. It's also actually in our cultural / religious teachings, like helping the underdog all the time, helping the underdog. I love that part of our Punjabi culture. To be more specific, the Sikh culture, like which gives you free food all the time. Almost everywhere in the world you go, to big cities, you go to Gurdwara, you get free food at almost any time of the day, and that kind of stuff. So that's I'm sorry, I lost your question. What was your question? I want to go back to that core.
Oh, I was asking you about, growing up in a farming family and studying economics. Was there ever a expectation to go back?
Yeah.
Home, or was it always to try to go to some better place?
Yeah. And go back is a tough one. I when I was studying in the city, a bigger city, and then bigger than that, and then bigger than that. The three cities I went to, like every time it's bigger because you're going to like bachelor's, master's, and I was pursuing my PhD in Chandigarh, which is the capital of Punjab, in Haryana, and capital of two states there. So the goal was to excel in that. Again, having that like mindset, like you want your family to get out of certain situation, right? That was my drive. That was my drive. My main drive was we always say like you need to have a drive. Like some people like money, some people like want to be famous, some people want to show the society, oh look, I did this. Some people want to take their parents out of the situation, kind of thing. It was for me. It was my mom. My mom was my drive, like for a long time. And after things like got better, then drive changes, So and you have your own family and other things, but that kept me going. That shaped me, and it was not like going back. There was no like going back. I think I always preach this to people in villages as well, like not only villages, even the cities. Like if you are not willing to leave what you have, if you're not willing to go out of your comfort zone, there's so much you can do. But at the same time, there's a dichotomy of the whole thing is that like how will you help the people who you left behind, right? Who are you think are not in a great situation, and that comes back to haunt you, or sometimes you have this feeling of like, oh my God, abandon those people. But I try to keep in touch and help those people back home financially and or with different means, like my coaching to kids and talking to local college students, and telling them how I did what I did and how they can do that same thing.
Talk about that shift from the main motivation being your mom, to kind of transitioning to yourself and your own family. Was that a market transition or just natural?
I think it was natural. I'm so very close to my mom and take care of them in different ways, like mental support, like, they're close by here and they live in the Union City here. I'm in Fremont, like about 7 miles from me. And Indian families are like very close-knit families, right? Even extended family is your family, your uncles and their uncles, like when their weddings is huge. I think all Asian families are like that. So that transition was natural, I believe. And also things improved as economics improved, right? My two sisters got married, and my brother came here and he got married. And so things were easy for my parents. And then, as I said earlier, most of the problems are economic problems, even at a micro level, a family level, and they turn into this other things, like people are mad about not being able to provide something, or not being able to do something they want to do, and they can fight, they can cause problems around them, right? So
when you look back at your childhood, because I think that I would imagine that being in a small village, there were some challenges. I mean, you see people whose everyday challenges are just like basic needs, getting enough food, having a good job, versus working in the Fremont area. There's a lot of wealth. How is that different? Your life today versus when you were a kid.
Yeah, when you're sitting far, like you think it's a lot different. Like when I was in a village, I would look up in the sky and there's a plane flying, and I was like, well, maybe someday. Like I never thought I would be able to get to sit in a plane, for example, right? Or we were not very poor or anything. Like we had our own like land and horses and even a tractor and stuff like that. But I think it's not much different, because you're trying to make a living and raise your kids with values which you think are dear to you, right? Not hurting other people's feelings and that kind of stuff, standard stuff every parent does. Almost everyone like wants to do that in the whole world. I'm lucky enough to be able to travel many countries. I've been to 18 countries, where I have worked and or traversed like in the local life in some manner. And the whole world is same. We love our families, we love our friends, we love our surroundings. We try to associate with local norms and local governments and local settings, if you will. At the same time, with the advent of the media, since the radio came, and after that radio, especially the TV came, like you get exposed to all the kind of visuals from other countries. And I usually say that, a side note, that from Hollywood, we export culture to the whole world. Culture gets exported. People get taste of it, and they want to adapt to it. They want to live that way. And that's how the things sort of trickle down over there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how there are so many different cultures in so many different countries, but yet it boils down to some very universal values. And when you dig a little bit deeper below the surface, we're not that different.
No,
we want the same things.
Yeah, actually, the stereotypes about other cultures and other countries and all that stuff. But if you go there and visit them, people are super nice everywhere. So there are very few bad people, but I always go back to that economics thing or other things that we are products of our circumstances, right? Nobody's born bad, so they're put into a situation where they turn out to be that way. And I try to tell other younger kids and my own kids that never look at somebody as like bad. It's their acts which are not good, but people are good. So it's hard to think that way, but I think that's the best way to think about people.
Sarbjeet, you told us about education being your way out and this focus on economics, but I came to find you on Twitter as a thought leader in information technology and cloud computing. How did you end up from economics to technology?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. So when I was pursuing my PhD degree, actually, in Chandigarh, I was working at a research institute, right? A think tank / research institute. Sorry. What we did was we did studies for the Punjab government, Haryana government, other states. We did studies for the states and the central government before the policy was made and after the policy was executed. And how did it do? So the next time they know what to do, right? Planning wise, economic planning and stuff like that, social planning, if you will. So I was pursuing that, and then I had to during that process, we had to do data analysis, right? And when I was in my college doing masters, I took some evening courses in computer application, right? It was called PGDCA, Postgraduate Diploma in Computer Applications. So I took those courses and I knew how to program DBase, Foxborough kind of stuff, right? I knew WordStar, and people who are techie, they will know that, whatever it is. So when I went to work here in this institute called IDC, still there, much bigger now, I was put as in charge of the computer lab, We had only one computer, one PC. We started very small. And everybody around me was PhDs because they were doing research, right? I was the only one pursuing it. Me and a peon who used to make tea. We were the two people, non-PhDs, everybody PhD. So anyways, so that's that's how I got into it. And I was pursuing that program when I got married in 94 and I came here. I still wanted to finish my degree in economics, but when I came here, I started working. I got a job in as a programmer. I came to Fresno. We lived in Fresno for 8-9 months, and Fresno is not a techie town or anything like that, right? So it's funny. I was bored at work. I was very busy all the time in city. It's pretty nice. It's called City Beautiful, Chandigarh, where I was in India. It's a very beautiful city, well planned and all that. So it looks like Europe, most of it. Not all. So when I came here, I was bored at home, and I was looking for jobs and all that. I went to work at Target one day. And they gave me this gun to do the inventory of things, and I was like, "What am I doing?" You know, I got bored. I came home, and I didn't go next day. So I will do anything. Then I thought, which I have done in the past. I will do anything to get into my line, what I want to do. So then I was like, okay, it will take a while for me to go to university to continue education. I needed some money and work-wise. And I came here, by the way, on marriage basis, right? As I told you, I got married in 94. And during that process, I said, okay, I knew programming, and there was a Fresno Bee is a local paper there. And there were ads there. I used to skim through the ads, like jobs and this, that. One day I saw the DLS computers looking for a programmer. And I'm still very old style in many ways. Like I will stop and ask somebody for directions, like, you know, rather than sniffing through web all the time, right? I like people. So I went there to the DLS computer and then knocked at the door, and they said, "Oh, come on in." And they said, "We don't know how much you know, but we will." I said, "I'm willing to work for free." I told them that. And Joe, their owner, it was a small company. He said, "We can't not pay you. So we will pay you the minimum wage." Like it was not minimum, actually. Minimum was $5 there. Back then, I think they paid me $7 an hour. They said, "We will test you during this time. We'll test you like how much you know, and then we will act accordingly. Like we'll keep you or let you go or whatever." Right? I said, "Okay, that's fine." And I fixed some Fresno County's payroll program. It was written in Visual Basic 3 and some stuff like that. And I fixed that very quickly. For me, learning a new language was like I knew a couple of languages already, right? So I was like, okay, it's VB. They give me a manual and a book and of course, installed that on the computer. And I was like going very fast. And then after, I think 3-4 weeks, Joe comes to me and says like, "Hey, a consultant backed out of a gig in Chicago. What this company was doing, they will provide consultants to AT&T or other bigger consulting firms, and then they will go somewhere else to a customer." So I was told that I was kind of reluctant to go because I was newly married and just new in the country, kind of relatively new, right? So I don't want to go to Chicago. And then Joe comes next day and said, "We'll triple your salary, $20 an hour." I said, "Oh man, that's good." In my mind, like I didn't say to him like, "Oh yeah," or I didn't show that. Like I thought he would think I'm just money driven or something. Like I used to have that kind of thinking, not anymore. I will not hide that today. So okay, I said I need one more day. Give me some time. I in my mind I wanted to say yes, but I didn't say yes there, just to have that control, if you will. So next day I said, "Okay, and I started working. It was a contract through AT&T GIS, Global Information Systems, as a programmer. So I started working at McDonald's headquarters. So AT&T had a deal with McDonald's. They sold a lot of hardware to McDonald's Corporation, and part of the deal was to write software for them. So I was one of the programmers. I was junior programmer, so I was shielded by the senior programmers Chuck Anderson and Mike Odell. I still know those names, and faces are like starkly embedded in my mind. They will shield me. They shield me. Very nice people, super nice. And they used to call me Johal. Like, not, they couldn't say my first name, so they call my last name Johal. Like, it's Johal. Like, anytime somebody comes to you and just say talk to Mike or talk to Chuck. Like, I was like in the beginning, right? So, and then over there, what happened was part of the program was not like my job was to work on. I'm sorry, we're getting long. I think the story is getting longer. So it's interesting though. So how things change very quickly. So there was a part of the program. My job was to work on the product screen, product selection. I was building a where clause in SQL, if you will. Like we were running these queries against Teradata. It's getting technical. So like what we were trying to find was that when somebody buys a Big Mac, what else do they buy with it? Just for example, or when somebody buys fries, what else do they buy with it? So why they were doing it was a marketing application. They wanted to do promotions, right? And they wanted to do promotions based on the patterns of spending pattern, so they can price different products differently and market differently. And that's where I learned. Actually, I always use that example that Big Mac was their loss leader product. Big Mac was a very juicy, tasty burger, but it was 89 cents for a long time. And they called it loss leader. Like people come for Big Mac, but then you make money, a lot more money on fries and drink. Now, I think drink is kind of loss leader. It's not a loss leader, but drink is $1 at McDonald's these days, but other things are more expensive. So there's always one thing to bring people in. So even at tech companies, they do that. They should do that, I think. So that's how I got into it. And then in that product tab, when I was building that thing, we were doing a lot of string processing, and part of the program was very slow. VB was very slow with string processing. And me being a little hacky from being from a village and from being India, most Indians are very hacky. We call it jugaad in India. Jugaad means hack. So we'll put together something somehow to make it work, right? So I went to Compu USA, I think the store used to be called Compu USA, those physical stores. And the Delphi launched, Borland launched another competitive product to Microsoft's VB3, VB RAD, Rapid Application Development Platform. It was called Delphi. So somebody told me, or I read somewhere, that Delphi is very fast in string processing. And I also knew that I can cook up a DLL, Dynamic Link Library, and plug it into VB. So that's what I did. I spent, I think, $99 or something. I got the Borland thing and built a DLL just to do the string processing. And that thing was like, I think 40 to 50 times faster. We did the benchmarks like in string processing, so that it removed the bottleneck in our program. So when the AT&T engineers, the software engineers saw that, they said, "Oh my God, Johal, you did that!" Like, okay, high fives. And I was a very shy kind of person, and then I was like, okay, in the background. And then that gave me a lot of boost to my morale. And after that, I never looked back. And amazing people. Like there was a guy, Brian, for his last name. He was a high school dropout. He was a programmer on the same team where I was. And I always give that example that in certain fields, in computing especially, the degrees don't matter. Like how you think matters. And I always tell people these days that learn coding. right? Don't learn it for coding. Like, you may not want to pursue a career in coding, but it helps you think differently. It develops your logical muscle, like if then else kind of things. Those are in coding, right? And there are loops, like you do things repeatedly, and then how you develop systems, the interfaces. These constructs are valid in social life, in economics, in politics, everywhere. Everything is a system. That's how. If you think, I'm a systems thinker, so everything is a system. Country is a system. Family is a system. A room is a system. And then you get to look at systems that it has internal functions and properties and external, so things which can impact it. So it makes it so easy for you to analyze any situation and break bigger problems into smaller problems. Sorry, I'm going all over the place, but that's how I got into tech, and I never looked back. And that urge to finish my PhD in economics, I gradually died. But even today, when I go to universities, I want to sit down with economists and people who are professors and discuss ideas and stuff like that.
I love that. A visit to CompUSA for a Borland program launched you in a different direction.
Yes, actually, the urge to prove yourself that I can fix it, I can do it, always pushing forward, like, marching always. In whatever you do, I think that drives me. Sometimes I feel like it's a curse, and thinking extensively all the time. My mind it never stops. My older daughter is like that, like me too. So you have to slow down your mind with other means, or music or something.
I want to ask you about cloud computing, because I think all of us have seen in the last 20 years how big a change, and how cloud computing is part of our lives today. It's like inextricably part of our work and our personal. We're touched by storage in the cloud and applications in the cloud, software as a service. You're in the cloud computing space, you're in IT, but you're also an investor. And I feel like with a very good eye for what are emerging trends or mega trends that people should be paying attention to. And I noticed that you tweeted recently about Amazon and their recent earnings report, like how significant the operating income was. Where are we today in cloud computing, and what should we be looking for, in our daily lives? Like, what trends are important to be paying attention to?
I think computing has become very pervasive. It's in every facet of our life, and it's getting more and more into that. I mean, like, we're not there. Like, we haven't things we can automate. We haven't even done like 1/5 of that yet, right? And while we haven't done that, we are already moving to the next level, which is machine learning, where machines will learn how to do things on their own. Earlier, we programmed them, right? That's how I started my career. And people before me and after me, they did that. So we will put the instructions in the machine, like, okay, you do this, that, and if this happens, do that. That logic, if you will, right? That's what programming is, telling a machine what to do. Machines are dumb by themselves. They were dumb, right? Now, with the machine learning going forward, the question is, like, where we're going. We have developed algorithms in such a way that they can see the patterns in the data to train the machines. We feed the data. That's what it is. The machines eat data for learning. And in future, most of the software will be self-generated in a way that we just let the machine watch something and say, okay, I got it. I'll program myself. We're not there yet, actually. means like a lot of people think that, oh yeah, AI, ML is there. AI stands for artificial intelligence. I usually tell everybody to use AI as augmented intelligence. That term should be pronounced as that, because artificial intelligence, or you sometimes call AGI, artificial general intelligence, like human-like intelligence, is not there yet. It won't be there, I think, approximately for next 15, 20 years, because our brain is a very complex thing. It can build models in, I read that in 10 plus dimensions at the same time, and computers can do only two. Best computers can do only two today. And every dimension you add, the problem is exponentially hard, right? So I was watching a lecture on brain a couple of days back. When I go running, I listen to these things. In There was an example of like a computer vision, machine learning today can tell you, this is the picture. There are three people in it, right? One person is standing on a scale, two people are laughing, or one is bending down a little bit. They can all tell that with, like, even telling that is a lot of work for a computer to do today, but it can only tell you that. But it can't tell you things like what is the story behind the picture. When somebody's on the scale. I'm using the same example what I heard from that lecture. Like Obama was standing on a scale, and his friends, in the White House, they are not looking at the scale. They're looking other way around and laughing, like, kind of like, they don't want to look at it. So like how humans don't want to share how heavy they are if they're trying to lose weight, we hide that, right? So that part of the machine will never know till it knows a lot more about human culture, how humans evolved, and all that stuff. So long story short, I think the general AI will take forever. I don't think it will catch ever to the human brain. Actually, I also look at the patterns. Actually, I always say I'm a student of patterns. It's not that the machines are improving; our brains are improving as well. Like, we don't notice that over the hundreds of years or thousand. If you look at 1,000 years back, look, the human brain could not do these kind of calculations. Or like 5 times 5 is 25. They didn't know what that was, right? Most of people didn't know. Today, almost everybody knows. So human brain is becoming faster as well. When kids are playing games, and their hand-to-eye coordination is getting much better than our ancestors, for example. So we think faster as we progress as humans. If you think in terms of like not years or decades, but centuries, then a lot of things fall into perspective, and I think human will still be in control for a long time to come.
Given your experience, can you explain Snowflake to us? Because it became the largest company to ever double in value on its opening day. And I don't know where you stand on Snowflake and its valuation, but I'm just curious, like for the average person, I feel like many people don't know what Snowflake does. They don't understand Snowflake. Can you give us some context and better understanding?
Yeah, my understanding of Snowflake is that it has simplified the data fabric, the movement of data, right? So the problem with the data was that it's hidden, it's kept behind the walls, right? It's in certain pockets and you can't get to it, right? And then we came up with the other technology like Hadoop and the data lake and all that. So what Snowflake has done is they have made the data movement much simpler, right? So that's in a nutshell. It's a simplification kind of innovation. Like if you look at the innovation, it's of many types, right? One, many people actually confuse innovation and invention. Like, those are two different things. I I don't think they have invented much, but they're very innovative. So what I mean by that is that they have taken the existing constructs and made it much simpler to consume. So that is one of the best types of innovation. I always say that is making things which are very complex very simple. So that's what they have
So
done.
this cloud-based data storage and the analytics, how significant is that? Do you think it will play an important role going forward? Or do you feel like it's not worth the valuation or the excitement that Wall Street had at IPO?
I think data, I mean, it sounds very cliche thing to say, and everybody's saying that data. Data is very valuable. It's not even an asset. Like we can't actually compare data to anything what we are used to, because it's an asset, but it's not an asset. It's oil. It's not oil like oil. Like oil, once you use it, it burns. But data, you can copy. You can make 50 copies of the same data, right? There's nothing like that data out there. So anything to mine that, to get value out of that, I think is useful. That's what traditional analytics were, right? The data warehousing and all that stuff. And the problem with that was it's like batch processing offline. You're doing these analysis after the fact, right? But what we're trying to do is gradually we're trying to go just real time. In real time, we want to know what's happening. As soon as something happens, as soon as somebody opened my door, I want to get the notification. It's happening today, right? I do that. Right? Within seconds, I know who opened the door because I gave them the key, digital key, stuff like that. Who bought what and what else can I throw at them and on the screen so they can buy that, or like all this pattern analysis. In healthcare, disease detection, early disease detection is very huge. I think it's huge. Some certain diseases, if you catch early, then you can fix it, but after some time, it's deadly. Stuff like that. And yeah, improving existing trains and planes, and by analyzing the behavior and predictive maintenance on the planes. Like we hear those examples all the time. Like now the GE can tell when an airplane engine will fail. So you're not sitting in the plane and somebody says, oh, this thing is broken. It'll take 3 hours to fix, and you can wait for it. It happens to us all the time. But now they can predict it. Stuff like that. And a lot more things. Like we can do a lot more things remotely these days. So I mean, what I'm trying to say is the data is behind all that, and data is what machines will eat to train themselves. That's machine learning. That's AI, where we are headed. Yeah, that the Snowflake, actually, the one key aspect of Snowflake-like company is that it's built on top of cloud, right? It's above the cloud, right? So it will work in any with any cloud provider. You can say that the cloud is actually agnostic, if you will, right? So they're not tied to some other brands. There's a problem we usually call vendor lock-in. If you go with a vendor, you're stuck there, and if they slow down in innovation, you're stuck with them. You can't get out, right? Because the life of these systems is long. Especially now, I'm going to go into a little more technical. I see the systems at any company I put that in 3 buckets, and then I map that to cloud consumption, like how we actually technology consumption, you can say. So there are systems of record, right? Mostly our ERPs and most part of our supply chain management and HR systems. The systems of record, right? And then the second tier of systems is systems of engagement, and sometimes I actually prefer calling them systems of differentiation. Like if you are Ford, and the other company is GM, right? You are programming your robots so which build the cars differently than GM, right? You can do better job than them. Your customer relationship management CRM can be better than them. Your marketing portals can be better than them, or they can be better than yours. So their processes can be better than yours, and then that's how they engage with the after the sale, pre-sale, post, like during the sale, whatever you name it, right? That auto example is one. You can take any other example, healthcare. You can take banking, whatever, right? So systems of engagement is the second tier, also known as systems of differentiation. And the third tier is the systems of innovation. That's where the cloud shines. Public cloud. Cloud is of many types. Like we can talk about cloud for hours, and there's what nuances to different things within the cloud. So in public cloud, most of the consumption was happening in the systems of innovation space. Earlier, it was mobile, social kind of stuff. Now it's machine learning, AI, computer vision, that kind of stuff, right? The huge thing about the cloud is that the barrier to entry is very low. It has democratized technology to the masses. That means society can experiment at a much faster pace. I always cite this example of the company Instagram was bought by Facebook for $1 billion. They were, I think, 19 employees, and they were only 1 year or 14 months old company, right? Few employees, sold for $1 billion. And that's only possible because of cloud. Like if these 4 or 5 people who started the company, or 2 people, if they had to buy these servers, find a place to rack them, a colo or whatever, stack those things, run the wires, you think they can move that faster to build that kind of product? No way. They couldn't. They need a lot of capital as well. Like who will give them all the capital? So the resource planning is a very hard part of the operating any digital systems. You don't know how much demand, especially in the B2C systems, you don't know how many people will come to your portal, if you're Facebook or Instagram or even forget about the social media kind of stuff, B2C, even commerce side of things, like the example we used to cite early on in the cloud days, right, was like during holidays, the traffic to the Amazon.com or eBay, like those kind of properties, Walmart.com is like 8 times more than the normal on rest of the 9 months, right, average. And that means you need that much more gear, let's say 5 times or 6 times more gear servers to just cater for those 3 months. And those things are sitting idle for 9 months. So you're wasting a lot of resources, right? So when you're using cloud, you're paying for what you're using, right? Somebody else is taking the risk on your behalf, and those are the cloud companies. And it's very capital intensive business. So they have invested hundreds of billions of dollars to bring those servers up, and they get to share that amongst hundreds of thousands of customers. So when you share these resources, the workloads can be dense. Your utilization of the resources is high. Normal utilization of resources on the compute side was around 20 to 30%, 30% max. If you have 30% utilization in banking sector or something, you're good, right? Right. And on storage side, it was even lower in many companies. So that means you're using 60 to 70% of resources all the time, which is crazy to think about, right? Not only that, how soon you can start writing code. Like I have an idea right now. If I did the things the old way, I have to wait for 10 weeks to get the server stacked and racked and connected and then do something. But today I can, within minutes, I can get going. So I will give you a real life example. When I was working at Rackspace, Walmart actually hired CTO of PayPal as their CTO, Walmart Labs. They wanted to rewrite the Walmart.com back then, and of course they will now go to Amazon for cloud because they're Walmart. Right? They came to us. We were number 2 cloud back then, and then we took the big squad there and were sitting in these meetings, and they told us that it will take even the most sped up thing. It will take around 12 weeks for them to start writing code, and they had people on staff, about like 10, 15 people were already there, and the team is hundreds now, but they were just starting. They said these people are sitting on the bench right now, right? So just imagine these people sitting on the bench for these many weeks, and while the other market, their competitors are moving, right? It is crazy to think about it. So speed of experimentation, and the capex to opex move, capital expenditure to operational expenditure, and your demand curve and supply curve are hugging each other on the resource graph, if you will. They are not zigzag, and you're not wasting capital. So the cloud is actually, on average, is more expensive than the same unit if you are operating yourself in a data center. But the problem is your utilization is like very low when you're operating. If you are utilizing 100%, then you should do that yourself. But you're never doing that. And even if you're doing that, you're doing it for a few workloads, but other workloads are not. So that means you can't do experimentation. You're already full to the capacity. Like if you need some more, where do you go, right? So right now, world is hybrid. Like we have, I think not more than 20% of workloads are in cloud. Some people quote it 15, some people say 27, but I think it's not more than 20% of total. And I think we will have more than 50% of the workloads in cloud. I can't predict when, maybe in the next 10 years or 7 years, but it will be before we retreat or we say, okay, no, there's a different way of doing things, or quantum computing does something different than what we are doing right now. But this trend will continue, I believe. Sorry, that's a long-winded answer. Sorry.
Yeah, it explains why the world is changing so quickly. In this fast-moving world, I saw that you stopped by Meta headquarters
yesterday,
the artist formerly known as Facebook.
Yeah.
In this fast-moving world, what are the chances that companies like Google, Amazon, Facebook remain leaders versus having newcomers coming in the future?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Actually, we want underdogs to win always. Almost all of us want that. We don't like big companies, big guys ruling, all kind of stuff, right? Big government, we don't like that. But this is kind of a little different. Like the advantage these people have gained is like they have lots of data they're sitting on. As I said, that the future of technology is based on the data. Like to train the machines, you need data, right? They need to eat data to get bigger. Let's put it that way. Software, in order for software to flourish, it needs to eat data now going forward. So they have tons of it. So whoever has tons of data, they will benefit from it. We usually use called haves and have-nots in the monetary terms. Like some people have more money resources than others. Now we talk about haves and have-nots of the data sort of world. You can mine a lot of behavior of your customers, of the masses, of the society once you have the data, right? So they have a flywheel effect behind them, these companies, right? I call them meta platforms. They're not platforms. They're the platforms of the platforms. So you can build things on top of them. Some companies have done a good job of letting people build on top of them. Some companies are greedy. They want to keep that moat to themselves, or they're not opening up, right? Let's put it that way. For example, Twitter, when Twitter started early on, they opened up the APIs to the developers, and then they started trimming down. Oh, you can't. No. They went backwards, right? I think that was wrong direction. That's not wrong direction for any company to follow. Yeah, you can have a higher margin and this and that, but if you can't turn your application into platform or your platform to meta platform, then you're not adding value to the greater society, or you're holding them hostage in a way, I think. Yeah, I think that's the best way I can put it. And these companies need to do a better job of opening up. Amazon is doing good because they give you tools you can build anything there, right? Amazon, one side of Amazon, which is the retail or e-tail, they have a lot of data about the commerce and all that stuff, right? But what data you put in their cloud, they're not touching that, right? And they shouldn't be. But as compared to Google has a lot more data about us. Facebook has a lot more data about us. I think Google has the most. Personally, I believe that. Where do you go? What do you eat? All kind of stuff, right? Through maps and searches. They know more.
Scary when we think about it. It's a bit scary when we think too hard about it.
Yeah, and then this most saint-looking company, Apple, is mischievous as well. I'm trying to raise the awareness around them. Like they're kind of fooling us, I think. Like they are stopping other people from giving the ads on their platform, but they made the most money from ads from their own platform. Like, what's going on here, right? And Google was paying them like $8 to $9 billion every year for the last few years to keep Google as the default search engine on iOS devices. So behind the scenes, they are kind of looting public in a way, you can say, or they're milking our data one way or other. But to the public, Tim Cook goes like, "Oh, we're the best, we care about the privacy," and it's kind of cheesy.
In your view, is there a data and AI war? And I ask because China, also a leader in AI and data, and they just have more people, so there's more data, and there's a privacy, like the Chinese companies and the government, the citizens are used to giving up privacy in exchange. So I just feel like the data set's much larger there. Is that an advantage? Is there a battle over time?
Yeah, I think it's that dance between, privacy and innovation kind of thing, right? I think West has to rethink that a little bit. Like, not all data needs to be secure, or not everything needs to be private, or like, why will you make that private? I mean, I'm maybe a little more liberal about the data stuff than most people are. I think if everything will be kept private, then we can't, like, as an individual, I can't leverage that data much. But when it's collected, for example, like if I'm talking about there's some bad sides to it, of course, but there are a lot of good sides to it too. Like if we get all the traffic pattern, traffic moving in certain direction, we can do better traffic control. That means saving gas. That means saving time. That means lowering the emissions, all that stuff. And then if we have all the DNA data from, let's say, 80% of the population, we can do much better disease detection. If we have data about all the cancer patients in one database, I bet we can find the cancer treatment like much faster, at much faster rate, because we can see the patterns. We can see, okay, if this happens, that happens. Machines can run these models and find out the correlations and causations kind of stuff very much effectively. We don't have that. So, and sometimes the hindrance to get that kind of stuff going, invest. But at the same time, I think privacy is important, so it's that's a different society there. They have that advantage, but at the same time, I think that the personal freedom, where you're going, why you're saying what you're saying, the political sort of freedom of speech, that can be curtailed when you're watching every move. I think that's what scares us in West, and because we hold that very dear to close to our heart, like freedom of speech, and that's why these countries made a lot more progress in short amount of time. China is an anomaly in many ways. Like it's a dichotomy. They're kind of socialist country, but they're most capitalist in other ways.
It's complicated.
It's very complicated. They use a sandbox approach to bring the Western values, the Western financial system, and then they trickle it down into the rest of the country. Very clever move. We need a cheap labor. We propped them up. I think West propped them up, like put all the factories there and this and that. And now we're trying to pull back. We will settle somewhere in between. I think globalization has a lot of good things, and it has some side effects as well. I usually say that in a tech sort of sense. On the tech side of things, technology is like medicine. Every pill has a side effect, and then the policy is like the same way. And any policy you make, it has side effects, right? So, but I think we need. I strongly believe that we need technology think tanks, couple of good technology only think tanks. We have the think tanks in the political policy making, right? International policy making or foreign policy making, what do you call it? Economic policy making. There are a lot of think tanks, and they do cover some parts of technology, but we don't have any purely tech focused think tanks. We have a lot of problems with the ransomware and the cyber threats from other countries, and it's wild west right now. And I think without having think tanks locally in nation states, and also in a couple of international, once you have that, then the international collaboration can happen without that friction. Because think tanks are mostly scholars and researchers. They work in those things, right? And it's funded by public and private sort of entities together. So they get along pretty well.
And it's not purely profit driven.
Yeah.
It can be more objective.
Yeah. It's not profit driven. It's not even politically charged, much of it. It's not. Most of them are really it's all relative, right? These are pure minded people. They see the whole world as one kind of thing. Most of them. So the collaboration becomes much easier between countries and all that. And I think that the entities like UNO, World Bank, IMF, they need to play, international institutions need to play a better role in InfoSec, in setting some standards on computer vision. What can you do? Because things can get out of control. Like you can put a gun on top of a drone and which can identify a target and shoot somebody in the crowd and come back. It's crazy, right? Crazy thing. You can do that today. So this technology in the wrong hands can be dangerous. We need some standards around these things.
Science fiction and real life are like closer and closer and overlapping every day.
Yeah, it's crazy where we are headed. But at the same time, there's always a good side to it as well. I feel more connected, and I can keep in touch with my friends from India now. What's going on there? Good and bad. Anybody can. I'm not worried about my mom and dad. I can call them anytime on video call. I remember when I came from India, The call was like $3 per minute or something. And sometimes we'll go to the wrong house in India. It's like, oh dang, I just wasted $3, $4, or $3 or $6 actually was an increment of $3 or something. And AT&T used to get all that money from us. But now it's all free, right? It's free. It's crazy.
It is great. Well, maybe it goes back to what you were saying early on, that people are good deep down.
Yes.
And maybe it comes down to the economics. We just have to lift up people and those in need, because then there are just more opportunities. On a personal level, I like to ask all the Inspired Money guests, how do you define success?
I think to me it's simple now, actually, especially as I'm getting older, I'm getting more clarity. To me, success is like to be able to do what you love doing. That's success. If you are able to do what you love doing, that means you're successful. It's not amount of money or anything like that.
Is that the lesson that you try to impart on your children?
Yeah. I tell them, like, again, like, to be able to do, that's the key thing, to be able. So you have done enough to secure your financial well-being enough that you can experiment. There's a wiggle room, right? But don't chase, like, I want bigger home, better car. I mean, I don't, like some people do, a lot of people do that. But it's, again, I think it depends on drive. My drive, I usually tell my close family and friends, and I'll tell you now here too. So is that I think there are high level, there are two types of people in the world, very high level, like there are many types, right? Like some people value money, wealth. Some people value intellect, right? They're more inclined towards like having good dialogue or inventing something, or not caring about the money. Like a lot of scientists, teachers are like that way. If they wanted money, they could have been programmed or something else, right? Like they can do like other things. So I am in the intellect camp. So whenever I go to any big city in any country, I will go to the university there. If there's no university, I will go to bookstore. That kind of stuff. Like I want to be around ideas and stuff like that. So I think, yeah.
So being on the more intellect side of the scale, how do you think of money?
I think money is means to run systems. Actually, it can be your life, it can be your household, it can be a state if you're governor of a state or something like that, right? It just means that's how I see money. Actually, my biggest fear, I was going to say that earlier, but I missed it, is that unequal distribution of resources, which is mainly money, is not good for our society as a whole, right? And I've said that many times, that every economic jolt we get, the way the policies are made for the last 150 years or so, or 200 years, the way the systems are laid out, every economic jolt happens, we end up printing more money after that. And what happens is like that most of the printed money, the new money, goes to people who already have money, because you can only borrow. People who can borrow are the only people who have money already. So that's how the credit system works. Like if you don't have any collateral or good score and all that, you won't get a loan, right? So every economic jolt leaves rich richer and poor poorer. I think it's a bad sort of trend. I think we're heading towards some big disaster. Sometimes I feel like that. That means we need the policy to correct the scores, if you will. Some people are talking about this, like some famous people. Ray Dalio talks about it. His book, Principles, is a great read, I think. How systems work, and they're smaller systems and the bigger systems, and there's smaller trends and the bigger trends. And he explains to your listeners or viewers, if you get a chance, just on YouTube, look for how economy works, and look at Ray Dalio's lecture. He's very passionate about it. He's a multi-billionaire person. He's teaching people these fundamentals, and I think it's amazing that most people should know how it works, and I think most politicians should know how it works, and policymakers. And then we can make better policies and better world and just world, if you will. I'm not socialist by any means. I think people who work hard should be rewarded, but there should be a little more care given to people who have less, definitely, through the policy. Because if the money is so skewed, like some people have like $200 billion and then we have homeless people, that doesn't make sense, I think, to me, my conscience.
Well, thank you, Sarbjeet. Thank you for spending this very thoughtful time with us. Can you tell the Inspired Money listener and viewer where to follow you and where to find out more?
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Actually, I enjoyed the discussion. It's very relaxed and I got to speak up my mind, if you will. Thank you for this. Thanks for what you're doing. It's a noble cause, I think, putting the ideas out there and giving people encouragement and making people learn from others, right? People can find me on Twitter. Actually, I am on Twitter all the time almost. It's a bad addiction, if you will. But that's why I get my most of the ideas from, and met a lot of great people through that. It's my ideation factory, if you will, for me. And you can find me on Twitter, on LinkedIn. If you can spell my name, you will find me. Actually, just Google it and you'll find me.
I'll put those links in the show notes along with Ray Dalio's video. Thank you so much, Sarbjeet.
Thanks, Andrew. Thank you very much.
So what was your favorite Inspired Money moment? Did you catch what Sarbjeet said about getting into programming? He was willing to work for free. He worked for just $7 an hour before tripling his pay when the McDonald's opportunity in Chicago came up. In addition to his insights into cloud computing and AI, I liked what he said about valuing money or valuing intellect or innovation. What do you value? It's really good to know yourself. What motivates you? If you had a different favorite Inspired Money moment, let me know by posting a comment below. For watching to the end, I want to send you an Inspired Money sticker. Go to inspiredmoney.fm/Andy, send me your name and address, and I'll put this in the mail for you. Thank you so much for joining me on this mission. Have an inspired week and do something that scares you, because that's where the magic happens.